Hi class, let's go over section 3.5 from your Math 0404 notes. Here, this section asks you to evaluate and simplify expressions that you might see in your statistics class, and the order of operation does count, so make sure you have a calculator with you, scientific calculator preferred, or one that has the square root button that you can find. So let's start with the second example here. Your instructor might ask you to upload the other missing ones that you don't have here, that we won't have time to complete. So question number 2, let's start with the order of operations. I know it's PEMDAS, right? But here we have a square root, so I need to start with what's inside the square root. And on the inside of the square root, I have the numerator first that I have to complete. So let's go ahead and multiply 0.68 times 0.32 in the inside of the square root. So we're going to have 0.2176, and the denominator is 1550. So bring down everything else from your expression. These are expressions because they don't have an equal sign. Now let's divide by 1550. So then this now becomes 1.96 times the square root of, now if you notice, you might have some weird numbers there. This is what my calculator is showing. So what is this E, Miss Aguirre? I have no idea what that is. Well, that's a number written in scientific notation, which there'll be a section on a little bit later. And so this means I need to move this decimal to the left because it's negative 4 places. So I have 1.40387, so I need to move this 4 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this decimal that's in here is actually 1.96 times the square root of 0.001, oops, 3 zeros, 1.40387. And yes, you keep all the decimal places. Don't round until the very end. If you want to keep more, because the more decimals you have, the better the accuracy at the end. Now let's take the square root of that number. So when you take the square root of that number, you get 0.01184856061 times 1.96. And now the final step is to multiply times 1.96, and we end up with 0.023223. And this one, they might ask you to round to the nearest hundreds, tens, hundreds, so that's actually 2 decimals. So if they're asking you to round to 2 decimal places, then I underline 2 decimal places and I look at the 3rd decimal place. If that's 5 or higher, I round up. If it's less than 5, this rounds to 0.02. It stays as 0.02. Okay? And circle your answers so we can find them. Example 5 is a little more complicated, but I know you can achieve this. So let's start with simplifying the numerator. On the top, I have 2 fractions, 2 terms. I have to square the top first. So let's start by subtracting the numerator. 24.8 minus 23.9. I have 0.9 on the top. On the bottom, let's square these first. So I have 5.3 squared and 4.8 squared. So this becomes the square root of 23.04, don't forget the square root, divided by 6 plus 23.04 divided by 5. Now you can keep the exact fraction, or just go ahead and divide those two and add them together. So let's do 23, oops, I'm sorry, 5.3 is, I'm glad I'm doing these mistakes here. I love these mistakes. 28.09 divided by 6, that's what 53.2 squared is. 4.8 squared is 23.04. That one is correct, and we're dividing that by 5. So let's do 28.09 divided by 6 and 23.04 divided by 5. So this one's a longer decimal, 4.681666666, plus the second one is simply 4.608. They're still under the square root. So when you add those two numbers, 4.681166666 plus 4.608, I end up with inside the square root 13.89766666. And now take the square root of that answer. And so this denominator is 3.727957439. And yes, nothing is nice whole numbers in statistics. So this is great practice to keep all the decimals and not round to the very end. So the last step is to divide. So let's get the top number and let's divide it by the top decimal. And when you do that, you should get 0.2414. Again, if we're rounding to 2 decimal places, I underline 2 decimals and look at my third decimal. If that's 5 or higher, this rounds and stays at 0.24. Okay? So those are 2 examples here from this page. Please finish the rest and upload the solutions to your notebook, to Blackboard. Your instructor might ask you to do that. Let's continue with the next